So let me preface this whole video by saying we're also going to do a video on the OKC Thunder trading for Victor Oladipo, because I feel that trade is deserving of its own video, plus I just want to get more views, let's be honest here. Also, there's some international players who were drafted, and I probably pronounced their names wrong, so I'm just going to say that now too. So the NBA draft was last night. Teams made some significant selections, Twitter went wild, Shake and Bake was depressed as hell, but then he turned around at around 1 a.m. And overall, it was a pretty fun night. So I'm just going to give my opinion on maybe the top 10 picks or so, and how they relate to their team. Now let me say, I'm not a draft expert, I don't even watch college basketball, but I do have a decent idea about pretty much all the top guys selected, because I'd like to think that I've heard enough things from so-called experts to know what these guys are about. So anyway, let's start with the 76ers drafting Ben Simmons. I mean, if Simmons is everything they say he's going to be, this makes sense. The question with this is, though, which one of their big men fits well with Simmons? Because you got Jahlil Okafor, who, as of right now, can only stay around the basket because he can't hit a mid-range jumper or anything. That could clog up the lane for Simmons because Simmons doesn't have a jumper himself. Same thing can be said for Nerlens Noel, although I do like the potential of a Ben Simmons-Nerlens Noel pick and roll. I think the interesting one could be Joel Embiid, who apparently has a bit of a 15-foot jumper and things like that. Now, we haven't seen him play, unfortunately, but perhaps he would be the ideal guy to go next to Ben Simmons. I don't know. I think you're going to see at least one of the three bigs on the Sixers get traded. Brandon Ingram, number 2 to the Lakers, fantastic fit. I mean, this guy shot over 40% from 3. D'Angelo Russell and Jordan Clarkson are ball handlers. He can stretch the floor. I think this is like a match made in heaven, Brandon Ingram and the Lakers. I think it's awesome. Me with this one. So I like Jaylen Brown. He's an athletic wing who seems to finish well inside, has a knack for the big play, can zip up and down the floor. He was a good rebounder in college. He's probably going to be a good defender in the NBA. The thing is, the Celtics did not really need Jaylen Brown. He's an athletic wing who can't shoot, and the Celtics need shooters, and they need big men who can make impacts on both sides of the floor. Now, I do think this could create some nice versatility with Marcus Smart, Avery Bradley, Jay Crowder, now Jaylen Brown, Amir Johnson. I like the potential in terms of Brad Stevens being able to throw different matchups out there, but at the same time, like, a part of me feels like drafting Buddy Hield or Jamal Murray might have been a better move for the Celtics, because there's not really a top big man available. Like, Dragon Bender's the top guy. He might be really good, we don't know, but they went with Jaylen Brown, so I like the potential for versatility with the Celtics. I just think if you would have went with a shooter, it could have had a better impact for you, but I might be dead wrong on that, who knows. Also, I can speak on the Celtics not trading for a star player. Apparently, the Bulls were asking for 2 Brooklyn picks, as well as Avery Bradley and Jay Crowder for Jimmy Butler. That's way too much. I mean, you're just gutting yourself at that point. I mean, if the Bulls were not willing to accept a Jimmy Butler deal centered around Avery Bradley, the number 3 pick, the 16th and the 23rd, if you have to do any more than that if you're the Celtics, I say don't do it. So I'm all on board for that one. Apparently, the 76ers offered Nerlens Noel and Covington and a couple other things for the 3rd pick. I might have been more on board with, but I'd say overall I'm content with what the Celtics did. Now, Bender going to Phoenix. Suns need a power forward. I like his fit next to Alex Len, because Len seems to be a center who's going to be around the rim a lot. And then we got Bender, who I probably mispronounced his first name already. Seems like a power forward who can stretch the floor, dribble the ball a bit. I like the fit with Phoenix. Chris Dunn going to Minnesota. That's a home run for Thibodeau. The ideal point guard to go with what they already have with Wiggins and Towns. What happens to Rubio? He's probably out, which I would be all for because I'm not a huge Rubio fan. Nice playmaker, but can't really score. Buddy Hield going to the Pelicans seems to be a right fit. They're going to lose Eric Gordon, which again is not a bad thing. Buddy Hield's a big-time shooter. I could see him starting game 1, being able to stretch the floor for Anthony Davis. This could really be the star player that the Pelicans need. At the same time, Buddy Hield, he was very reliant on his step-back jumper in college. I fear that he's going to go to that in the NBA too much, and it's not going to work because NBA defenders are really freaking good. But at the same time, he had enough moments of driving to the rim where I was like, Okay, maybe he could be a real good scorer in the NBA. He kind of reminds me of Joe Johnson, to be honest. And Joe Johnson in Atlanta averaged over 20 points per game for a long time. And if Buddy Hield ends up being that good and Anthony Davis is still your number one guy, some good things going on in New Orleans. Jamal Murray to the Nuggets. I imagine he plays shooting guard. The idea of Jamal Murray and Emmanuel Mudiay next to each other could be interesting. Murray's definitely a shooter, and I believe he can put the ball on the floor a bit more than Gary Harris, so I like the idea of that with the Nuggets. Now, Phoenix ended up with Marquise Chris at number 8 because the Kings traded the pick away. I don't know much about that dude, but I can say to the Sacramento Kings, is this really the right thing to do to trade the 8th overall pick? You ended up with Bojan Bogdanovic, who, I mean, he's not bad, don't get me wrong, but like, decent at the shooting guard position. Valentine was pretty well thought of among draft people, so I don't know. Interesting that Sacramento chose to trade it away. Now, Toronto at number 9 went with, I'm just going to say Jacob. I can't pronounce his last name, I'm sorry. The draft said he was a power forward. This website says he's a center. I don't really know what he is, but I do know that Toronto needs someone effective at the power forward position. So if he can be that guy, shout out to him and shout out to them, because that's what they need. I mean, they had Luis Scola out there. You're just not going to win that way. And then finally, the Milwaukee Bucks going with Thon Maker. Are these guys going to trade Greg Monroe or what? I mean, I'm not a huge fan of Greg Monroe. He's a decent post-up player, but I mean, not a defender whatsoever. Doesn't really fit in with the culture of what the Bucks are going for, which is length and defense. Thon Maker seemingly is that sort of a player with his defense and all that. But from my understanding, he's going to be a project at the same time. But then again, given that Milwaukee roster, I don't know if they're going to jump up to 45 to 50 wins next season unless Giannis just carries them, which is very possible, by the way, but I don't know. I guess Milwaukee is willing to take on a bit of a longer waiting thing with Thon Maker. At least to my understanding, it's going to take a minute for him to take off. It might not, I don't know. But they are going for defense, which I'm never against. And then besides all that, let me just say I like Denzel Valentine going to the Chicago Bulls because they just lost Derrick Rose, so they're going to need somebody who can do some stuff on offense. So anyway, that's it. If you're going to ask me what do you think about this guy and this guy, chances are I got no frickin' clue, alright? Somebody on Twitter asked me about Henry Ellison. I don't know who the hell Henry Ellison is, okay? He's probably great, but I don't know who he is. So anyway, I'm done.